The following is a look at the killers of Dead by Daylight, and any real-world equivalents they might have. Let's continue. Charlotte Dier and Victor Dier, aka the Twins. I was ready to pronounce their name as Diches for the entirety of the video. I'll say Dier, I promise, even though I'm the kind of guy who pronounced Guy Georges as Guy Georges for the entirety of his segment in the 100 SKP. The Twins, along with the last three killers, continue a streak of antagonistic characters that operated at least 100 years before the present day, accompanied by a survivor from the present day who possesses knowledge in some form of these figures. The Plague almost does as well, but she wasn't part of the streak. In 17th century France, Madeleine Dier gave birth to conjoined twins. The second I saw the killer, I knew the backstory would be about ostracization, survival, persecution. It's a take on the tale of acceptance with the moral of who are the real monsters. This was mostly accurate. I also want to highlight an absent father, reasons unknown, but this was the past, so I don't think modern standards apply. Regardless, they were outcast and alone, at the mercy of a cruel and superstitious society. The family did what they had to, but Madeleine fell ill, resulting in Charlotte stealing food so they could survive. This inspired a mob to kill Madeleine Dier in a fire. The twins were soon sold to a mysterious group, which was clearly the recurring bad guys of the lore, the Black Veil. What the twins went through went a bit beyond bullying, but there was still plenty of that. And now as a pet for these cloaked cult figures, their treatment was all the worse. There was an instance of zoo sadism, but Charlotte was forced to do this lest she be beaten some more. However, I think the hillbilly was also forced to kill the pigs as a child, so I've still counted this instance. One day, the twins accidentally burnt down the monastery they were imprisoned in after the monks tried to memento mori them. The twins escaped, but Victor died as a result. Charlotte was unable to acknowledge his death, and the tome covers this beautifully. So begins the tome lore as the twins wander without a home. Charlotte tried to save her brother, but wound up accidentally burning down a local village to avoid being recaptured. I didn't know France was so combustible. Anyway, the twins' tome was a sad and lonely journey, and sooner or later Victor's death would be acknowledged, and Charlotte would be forced to come to terms with his passing. A devastated Charlotte was forced to go on alone for many years yet, stealing, killing, running from the cults that hunted her. One winter, after enduring so much hardship, she simply lay down to die. But Victor apparently came back to life that very evening. The entity has recruited them, or at least her, and now the hunted gets to be the hunter. Firstly, as I've stated elsewhere, I can't think of any serial killer who has a deformity. I'm uncomfortable even using the word deform. I did consider Tatsumo Miyazaki, who allegedly had deformed hands, but I'm struggling to confirm that. Google presents these images, but I don't know, they look like spare prosthetics from the set of Nosferatu. That's the closest I could find, but I did stumble upon the case of Grady Franklin Stiles Jr., aka Lobster Boy. Stiles suffered from a condition called ectrodactyly, where the fingers and toes are fused together, and he worked as part of a travelling circus. Apparently Stiles was an abusive alcoholic and wound up shooting his daughter's fiancé. As you can see, there's not much to go on, but I doubt the twins had any real basis anyway. Apparently, conjoined twins can't even be opposite genders. I think. Maybe. Anyway, I don't think any of us would blame those with birth defects or being conjoined with another person to be bitter. But in my research, this doesn't seem to be the case anyway. Perhaps some of those born with thalidomide defects harbour some ill will, but I suppose when one has no choice but to crack on, you just have to crack on. We all do this to some extent anyway, but the twins were in feudal France, which is more than enough to make anyone bitter, so that line of inquiry is another dead end. Still, it's a mostly sympathetic portrayal of someone with a disability being unfairly treated by the wider community. I do wonder about the horror genre's depiction of the disabled and deformed, especially this. Portraying these people as evil killers is wrong, but like I said, the Aesop where the reader is encouraged to ask themselves where the real sickness is holds true. But I'm willing to lower the bar on what is and isn't a disability to see if there's anything comparable to the true evil from my project, and I think I have something. During the course of the project, I found those with XYY syndrome were underrepresented, putting to bed that misconception about those with the disorder being more murderous. But there was one standout in the 100 cases in Arthur Shawcross, aka the Genesee River Killer, who killed 14 people. He suffered from XYY syndrome, which may include symptoms such as learning problems, being very tall, facially unusual, and poor coordination, which I think Shawcross had. XYY may also generate severe acne, weak muscle tone, or no visible condition at all. Indeed, many people with the condition don't even know they have it. Apparently, XYY isn't even connected with higher levels of testosterone. The misconceptions and stigma of the condition might go back to one Mary Telfer, who, allegedly, incorrectly assumed Richard Speck was an XYY, and indeed the acne thing might be incorrect as well, but I'm in no position to comment, and this is a controversial field. Double Y is often called Jacobs syndrome, whereas double X is called Klinefelter syndrome. An example of XXY syndrome is that of Robert Long, who killed 10 women and r***ed over 50. Symptoms are rather similar to those with Jacobs syndrome, with the addition of lack of body hair and developing breasts. It isn't too clear to what extent these men resented their condition and to what extent it inspired their crimes, and I see no reason to jump to any conclusions. There have been a few particularly tragic cases of conjoined twins. Daisy and Violet Hilton were exploited and abused by their guardians after their own mother had rejected them. This makes them even more tragic than the Diers. They appeared in the film Freaks, but there's no criminality with them. Indeed, disabled people and those born with a congenital disability have little representation in crime. But to my surprise, I found that twins as a separate phenomenon are represented. I already knew about the Cray twins, a pair of London gangsters active in the 60s, but upon further research I fell down a rabbit hole and found some very strange cases. The Gibbons sisters, June and Jennifer, were an inseparable duo that didn't talk to anyone except each other, and in their own language, and they were something of a curiosity to those around them. When they were both 18, they embarked on a series of crimes including theft, vandalism and arson, and they were incarcerated at Broadmoor Hospital. Broadmoor is very well known to any British person with an interest in true crime, with many notorious inmates including some serial killers, Peter Sutcliffe, Robert Napper, Robert Maudsley, John Straffen and the aforementioned Graham Young, amongst others. One of the Crays, Ronnie Cray, was also imprisoned at Broadmoor upon being certified as insane. The Gibbons sisters would stay at the hospital for 11 years until, in 1993, aged 29, Jennifer Gibbons died. This was supposedly to break their mutism so the other twin could live a normal life. The exact details are a real mystery as there's no evidence of suicide, and once Jennifer passed, June was indeed able to speak freely to the staff. She's still alive today. Robert and Stephen Spalowski are another bizarre case where they were both murderers but worked separately and unaware of each other's crimes. With 4 kills, Robert Spalowski would be classed as a serial killer. The Whitehead sisters killed their own mother, and there have been 1 or 2 other cases of parents being killed by twin children. I do wonder about that peculiar link that twins seem to have. In any case, Charlotte and Victor deserved better, but now they are trapped in the entity's realm. Like I said, portraying a deformed or disabled person as evil because of their condition would be distasteful, and it doesn't have much basis in reality anyway. And believe me, it's the normal-looking ones you should be most careful of. But we're in the fog, where the grotesque and the standard hunt us all. The twins' ability is that to control between two different characters independently of each other. Charlotte is a typical M1 killer and Victor is a super-fast blood tracker. It's actually quite a powerful ability with a lot of application if you have some imagination. Sadly, this ability always felt clunky and awkward to me, and it actually got worse over the years. It's also a camper's paradise and encourages some less than wholesome playstyles. Apparently the twins caused some real problems at the highest MMR, and there were all sorts of ideas on how to fix them. I can attest that when all 4 survivors are injured, you'd better watch out because a slugged total party kill is very much on the cards. Despite me feeling they're somewhat underrated, my self-imposed retreat from DBD didn't end because of these two. Another chapter with a survivor part of that weird group called the Pariahs, and no new map. I do remember the twins were dogged with weird bugs and issues, and still have issues and a bad reputation. I had previously been concerned that the recent crop of killers were a little out of place with the pre-existing roster, but now I'm whining that this chapter was a bit too brown and normal. Maybe I'm just as fussy and unappeasable as the worst of entitled DBD players, but it doesn't change how I feel. As of May 2024, a disastrous rework of the twins was scrapped. I never play the PTB, but the punditry suggests this was not good. Regardless of recent events, there's just something rather uninspired and wrong with Binding of Kin. I wonder what the next chapter will bring.